Hey everyone, Undr here, and today I'm going to give you all my top 5 picks for DLC Smash 4 newcomers. For those of you who are not aware, Nintendo has asked us, the fans, to submit character ideas for future Super Smash Bros. DLC characters. Pretty much any video game character is on the table for this one, including third parties. Now before I get started, I'd like to make mention of the criteria that I will be using. While these are indeed my top 5 personal picks, that doesn't mean thought and reason wasn't put into these. There are characters out there I'd like to see in Smash, and I simply know wouldn't fit, or would be far too unlikely to even consider. So, sorry Cubone, this isn't your time.
Did you miss me? You want to play with Bayonetta?
This selection might seem a bit odd if you understand the criteria for character inclusion in Smash. They either have to be highly influential in terms of what they mean to the history of gaming, or they need to be like a Nintendo darling, such as Rob. Doubly so if you're going to start including third parties. However, I feel Bayonetta is a franchise that has a lucrative future, particularly as a Nintendo brand. Nintendo included the original Bayonetta alongside Bayonetta 2, a great gesture on both Platinum and Nintendo's parts. This does, however, put every game to date on a Nintendo console. Another factor is simply the amount of gratitude Platinum has publicly shown Nintendo for financing the development of Bayonetta 2. I honestly wouldn't be surprised if Platinum and Nintendo strike some sort of exclusivity deal with this franchise in the near future. I'd also like to point out that Nintendo has been actively pursuing mature titles as of late. Bayonetta 2 may be the most well known, but Nintendo also owns the Fatal Frame series now. Not to mention they've been protecting their rights over Eternal Darkness for some time as well. So yeah, Bayonetta may be iconic, but is she iconic like Sonic, Mega Man, or Pac-Man? Probably not. But Nintendo may treat her as if she's more part of the family, as opposed to a special guest. As far as how well she'd fit in Smash, well, we already have realistic humans in the game already, and her fighting style's way over the top and flashy, something that's been proven to translate pretty well to the Smash engine. So I really see no technical difficulties in her inclusion.
Let's go!
I would say this would be a surprise entry if WayForward, the developer Shantae, hadn't beaten me to the punch, and then hammered the point home, and then started a campaign for the character. But Shantae isn't really a serious candidate, is she? I mean, many core gamers don't know who she is. She looks super indie, she's a third party. Isn't this just another developer trying to push their character for publicity? I don't know, maybe. But the fact is, this franchise has been around with Nintendo for quite some time, dating all the way back to the first game's release in 2002 on the Game Boy Color. Yes, Shantae is over 10 years old, and she has primarily appeared on Nintendo platforms. This is a franchise that has survived with little to no publicity, something that has become increasingly difficult in the games industry. This is because Shantae, as a series, is so good at what it does. Now, the character itself is fun and witty. She has a unique design and fighting style not seen in Smash. She would definitely be a welcome addition to the roster. Did you expect me not to include Splatoon's Inklings on this list? The real question is, why aren't they higher up? Well, it's because they're new, and I'm very confident that Splatoon will become a franchise Nintendo can bank on generation after generation. It's going to prove to be a must-have game for the Wii U, and what better way to promote the game but through one of the Nintendo's most popular franchises? Well, it's still new. The simple fact is, the Inklings already look geared for Smash. They already have multiple color designs, they have amiibo support, and the move list literally writes itself. Probably not literally, but you know what I mean. Between using squid form for recoveries and rolls to projectile-based attacks and traps, the Inklings will be a Nintendo staple for many consoles to come. Might as well invite them to the Smash Party now while you can. I mean, they're going to be, auto inclusions from here on out. Undoubtedly the most hyped character since Geno, King K. Rool is probably the most likely newcomer to be brought in as a DLC. He's crushing it in both the Japanese and Western polls, he's part of a current franchise, and he fills 3 specific roles. He's a heavyweight, he's a bad guy, and he represents a painfully underrepresented franchise in Donkey Kong. I mean, honestly, just 2 characters from one of Nintendo's oldest franchises? I mean, come on. Recently, I had the pleasure of hosting my buddy Kevin on my Twitch channel, which you should all check out after this video, link below, and he played the original Donkey Kong Country to completion. It had been a long time since I had last played it myself, and it did bring me to talk about King K. Rool's addition to Smash. I was initially rather dismissive of him, as for whatever reason I didn't feel like giving him a stall at the time, but upon further reflection, I really see what everyone has been clamoring about. The first game didn't really paint a memorable image of King K. Rool. He was just the bad guy at the end of the game. He didn't have a recurring presence in the game like Bowser does in the Mario series, and he really didn't have memorable lines like Grumptilda did in Banjo. But it's more about what he represents. Think of him like King DDD. It's literally a main character from a Nintendo's franchise, one of the most famous Nintendo franchises. King K. Rool would provide Nintendo with the tools to create another style of large fighter. They've done a good job to date making their large characters diverse within this game. But King K. Rool may be the first Zony fatty to be included. Now, Zony, what I mean by that is that, you know, he can space out, he can use projectiles to keep people away from him. And while I'm not sure how this would really impact the game competitively, as Zony characters typically are frowned upon, it's definitely something Nintendo would be interested in exploring. I mean, they included Duck Hunt Dog, and he is the most spacey thing that I've ever seen in a fighting game ever. So, yeah. You thought I was going to say Geno, didn't you? What with my mentioning him just moments ago? Well, Geno certainly would have been nice to have, but it's not like it's going to happen. I mean, if it was going to happen, it would have happened by now, right? There was a huge campaign to get him into Melee, a huge campaign to get him into Brawl, and a huge campaign to get him into Smash 4, and no Geno. So instead, I'm going to make my case for Lloyd Irving. Lloyd comes from the Tales series, a franchise dating back to the SNES. Tales is a JRPG that has recently grown to rival Final Fantasy in popularity. Now, that's a combination of Tales as being a really good franchise that's been catching on in the West at an exponential rate, and the fact that Final Fantasy has not been spectacular since Bravely Default, which isn't really a Final Fantasy title. So anyway, it's a franchise that has scoured the gaming globe in that it has appeared as exclusives on many different consoles. From Nintendo to Sony to even the Xbox, despite it not being very popular in Japan at all. The series itself can make a great argument for representation on these merits alone. So why Lloyd Irving in particular? Well, Lloyd was the main character of Tales of Symphonia, the first game to really embrace the third dimension, and it did it very well. A GameCube exclusive, Tales of Symphonia quickly became the darling game of the console. It was one of the few JRPGs for it, and to this day it is still considered by many to be the best of the series. Which is a lot, saying how old and how many games this franchise actually has. It's also one of the few Tales games to get a proper sequel, which itself ended up on the Wii. This series was also created by Namco, and this is the key. Yes, the same Namco that helped work on Super Smash Bros. If another third-party character was going to end up in Smash, wouldn't it make sense for it to come from Namco? Well, moving on to Lloyd's viability as a fighter in Smash, the Tales franchise uses random encounters to trigger fights, so the overworld gameplay isn't the same that's used for combat. Instead, the game goes into a 2.5D engine, which basically means you're fighting in a 3D plane, but you're not really because you're fighting on a 2D axis. Okay, what I'm essentially trying to say is that he comes from a game whose engine is already quite similar to Smash Bros. It would honestly be a very good fit to have him in this game. Okay, so you may have noticed that some obvious candidates were left off the table in this list. Characters such as Roy and the before-mentioned Wolf. This is because I feel these characters may already be planned. Plus, come on, it's no fun to pick veteran fighters. With that said, though, I would like to remind you all something. The Ice Climbers were originally cut from the game because of the hardware restrictions of the Nintendo 3DS. Funny enough, Nintendo has just released a new, more powerful 3DS, possibly upon the shock of having been limited, by it with Smash. But now that the new 3DS is out, I can totally see the Ice Climbers climbing their way back into the game, especially since you have to believe that much of the work has already been done. Thanks for watching my first top 5 video. I'm not sure how many of these I'm going to end up doing, so we'll see where this video takes us. If you have any comments about my list or wish to share your own, please feel free to do so in the comment section below. I'll do my best to respond to y'all. Again, thanks for watching.